Frank from Jettrim. Today we're going to do a quick little video of an install on an SXR1500. First we're going to kind of go over the kit and what comes with it. This particular kit is getting our ergo rear kickers, getting a small front hump, the bottom mat, the dash mat, and both sides. As far as the tools needed, obviously in-house we're going to use a spray gun for the glue. You could paint it on with a paintbrush. We typically recommend the foam paintbrushes versus the bristles, or a lot of times some of our customers will go to the automotive shop and you can purchase an automotive spray gun that has a pint canister below it, usually anywhere from $39 to $49. I kind of recommend that route as opposed to painting it on. You may spend a little extra, but if you ever were to do another mat kit, it'd be nice to have a gun. The other thing you're going to need is Coleman camp fuel. You can get this at Walmart in the camping section, or typically the hardware store. It's also known as white gas. This works really well to get the glue off of pieces where you may have oversprayed, or to get it off your hands, your tools. This is safe on all the graphics kits, the gel coat finish. This is something we recommend using versus like an acetone or a lacquer thinner. And you're going to want some Scotch-Brite pads. In-house we use the red. And you're going to want some sort of a marking pencil, whether you use a colored pencil, a crayon, something to kind of mark the hole that you can wipe off later. First thing you'll see here is that we've already peeled off the factory mats. We've also removed the rear cap piece. We drilled the rivets out, pulled out both Allen heads, so this kind of gives us a clean slate to start installing our mat kit. The first step to installing the mat kit is we're going to start with the dash. We always start with the ski, with the dash first, and then work our way back, and the bottom mat will be last. One thing you're going to want to do is kind of hold the mat kit in place, which kind of gives you a good eye of where you're going to want to scuff the hull. So this is where this wax crayon or China marker is what we use will come in handy. You're going to hold the mat kit in place and kind of give yourself a few notches. As you see here, I'm marking the hull to where I know to keep my sanding. So I'm going to mark where this mat kit lays. On both sides. This also gives you time to see how the mat kit's going to fit and kind of help you decide where to set it in place once you've glued everything up. So as you can see here, now that I pull that away, I kind of have a templated outline of where the mat kit's going to lay. You're going to want to do this for the dash as well as both side pieces. Like I said, we start with the dash. We're now going to line our side mat up and mark it in the same fashion. Holding it in place with one hand, you can kind of roll the mat kit over the top of the ski and mark where it's going to end on the top side of the ski. This is an important step you don't really want to rush, because you're going to be sanding everything from the inside here. So if you take your time and really mark things out straight, that'll keep you from sanding outside where the mat kit's going to lay. So now, having everything marked, you're kind of have an idea of where the kit's going to lay. You're going to want to take the Scotch-Brite pad and we're going to scuff everything where the kit's going to lay. Once again, this is something probably take a little extra time in doing. Don't go outside your lines, so that way you prevent from scuffing outside where the mat kit's ultimately going to lay. You're not really looking to take off the black finish, you just want to scuff it up a little bit to give the glue something to bite to. The best thing to do is to probably blow the ski out if you have some compressed air, and then we'll give it a wipe down before we start installing. This time you'll see I have wiped off the yellow marking where our kit lays. But you'll know where to glue because the ski's been scuffed. We're going to first start with the dash piece. Like I mentioned earlier, we usually start with the dash and kind of work our way back. When you're gluing, keep in mind it's better to do several light coats of glue versus one thick heavy coat. Ultimately, in the end, you want this glue to be pretty dry to the touch when you go stick it on the ski. So if you have a heavy coat, it just takes a little longer for it to dry out. We're going to now start by gluing the ski, and like I mentioned, we're going to stay right inside of our scuff lines here. Letting your glue set up, now's a nice time to dry off any overspray, get any of the glue out of the way that you don't want to be seen. Any glue that you may have gotten on the outside trim you're going to want to remove, other than on the bottom edge. So now you'll see at this time the mat and the glue have been set up pretty good. Notice it's not sticking to my hand at all, and it's very dry. Same with on the ski. You want the glue to be very dry by the time you stick them together. So when we start installing the dash, notice I'm holding the sides of the dash away from the ski so it doesn't stick before I'm ready. You're going to want to line this dash up right on the center first, holding these away, and get a good adhesion between the two. Now that those are stuck, it allows you to hold this back and really fold this edge into the crease. Notice how I'm keeping my hand behind here, and I really fold it into this edge. Same thing on this side. To really get this corner set in here, we use a hook, and we really kind of dig it in like this to get that corner nice and set. Now you're going to want to apply some pressure on the mat kit. You can either do it by hand or you can do it with some sort of a mallet. I wouldn't recommend using a metal mallet as it could dent the mat. We use a rubber mallet in-house, and you're just going to kind of lightly pound it in place. Now with the dash glued in place, we're going to work our way backwards, starting with the side mats. Again, maybe a good idea to hold the side mat in place and kind of eyeball where things are going to go, so that way you have an idea before it has glue on it. Kind of give yourself some notes and some final fitments ideas. And you'll notice how I laid this front corner here and made my way up and kept a nice tight finish between these two pieces. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to kind of come to the back of the ski and line this bottom edge up. Holding it away with one hand, you can kind of align this up on the bottom edge of the ski. Now that the mat kit's pretty well in place, we're going to go ahead and use the mallet and give it some tension again. As well as go around all the edges, as that's usually where the mat kit starts pilling first. So you want to make sure all the edges are nice and glued. now that we have both the sides and the dash stuck, we're going to start working on the bottom mat. We're first going to glue the optional under mat and get it in place. Now that everything's good and dry, we're going to stick the bottom mat. These are cut a little bit big, so that way you can really fill it into the corners and not have any gaps. Notice I keep the one end up while I start in the front of the ski. We're going to wind up cutting this excess off the back, which you can do at this point. When you're setting these ergos on the ski, you're going to want to make sure you get a left on the left side and a right on the right. They look like they're pretty symmetric. However, when you flip them, you will notice when the right side ergo is on the left, it kind of angles forward. You want to make sure you get them on the right sides so they stay straight right off the back of the ski. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to hold the block in place, the front hump, and we're going to trace around it so we know where to set it once we glue it down. At this point, it's optional if you want to cut the undermat out and set the front hump down in the undermat, or if you want to just set it on top. Either one will work. On this ski, we're going to cut out the undermat and set the front hump down on the glass of the ski. You'll now see this front hump will fit nicely in place right inside the undermat. We're going to glue both the hump and the tray now. Now that that's nicely dried, we'll go ahead and stick the front hump in place. I usually start with one corner and smash it forward, get it as far forward on the dash as I can, and work my way to the other corner of the hump, followed by the last part in the back. We're now going to do the same steps for these rear ergo kickers. You're going to want to mark where they go, holding them in place, and cut out the undermat below it. One thing to keep in mind when you're positioning these is when we roll the back mat over the back, you don't want a big step here. So you're going to want to line these up flush with the fiberglass on the back. Also, now is a good time, if you're wanting to reuse the bow eye, to cut this hole out for the bow eye. If you're going to be using our optional U-bolt from underneath, now is the time you would want to install the U-bolt. To install this, you're going to hold the plate on the top side of the bow eye hole, and you're going to mark it. Using a drill bit, you're going to drill through the hole and give yourself enough clearance for the U-bolt to go through. Once you've drilled your holes, you're going to want to stick one set of the nuts all the way down on the U-bolt, just like you see here. You will then stick the U-bolt up from the bottom of the ski, and you will stick the plate on top and the other two nuts, followed by a little bit of Loctite on them. So now with the U-bolt and or bow eye cut out or drilled, we're going to go ahead and remove the undermat for the ergo kickers, which would be the same step if you were to be using the straight rear kicker. Now with the undermat cut out, you're going to want to give yourself one final fit, make sure everything went as planned, and then we can start gluing these ergo kickers into place. Just kind of soften this edge a little bit. We just kind of have a little hand rasp that we're going to use. And as you see, we're just going to kind of take this sharp corner off. This isn't something that's absolutely necessary, but it just makes the mat, the bottom mat, roll over the back of the ski a little nicer. So we're going to glue the bottom mat. And on this one, we are going to glue all the trimmed edge, as it's pretty tough to get the super glue under the trim at the very end. So we're going to just coat the whole bottom of the mat, including the tail back here. Now that everything's glued up and fairly dry, we're going to go ahead and stick the bottom mat. We're going to kind of follow the same procedure as we did the undermat. We're going to start at the front, one of the corners, and kind of work our way back from there. The mat tends to let rest on the lifters like this, where you can almost kind of hold the mat up and stick your front corner up here. We're going to go ahead and start making our way to the back of the ski. I typically line one side up and stick one side first. So we're going to kind of start on this side and work the mat into place, trying to leave no gap between the bottom mat and the side mat here. Go ahead and kind of hammer things in place. Typically I start in the center and I pull down, securing it along the back just like this. So that way it gets a nice even smooth mat where it rolls around the back of the ski. Since this ski is getting the rear cap and bumper put back on, we're going to now cut the mat flush with the bottom of the hole. If it wasn't getting the bumper, you would want to tuck the mat underneath and glue it underneath just like this. However, we're going to cut this one since it is getting the bumper. Taking a razor blade, we're just kind of following the bottom flange of the hole. This now makes for a nice finish for your bottom cap to go back on the ski, just like this. Our next step is we're going to want to super glue or the trim glue all the way around all the edges. For this, we have an in-house, basically a super glue that we use. A lot of people like the glue that you can buy at the hardware store. Either way, you're going to want something with a fairly thin nozzle under it, and we basically just poke a hole in it with a needle, just like that. And then you're going to take the nozzle, it's easiest to take it and kind of bend it over at a 45 so it looks about like this. So we can kind of lift a corner here, and as you see I have the nozzle of the glue underneath the trim of the mat, and you're just going to apply a small bead of glue right along the mat's edge. So we're going to just keep working our way around. Having the bent nozzle allows you to even get the super glue up underneath this bottom edge here. You may also want to apply a little glue on the bottom mat where it meets up with your foam kicker, whether it be the ergo or the straight kickers, and a little bit right underneath here. So you're going to want to finish by super gluing around both side mats, the dash, and around the back of the bottom mat. It's not necessary to glue under this edge of the bottom mat, as you've already contacted and cemented that all the way down. For the most part, that completes our install. You would want to rivet this back cap back on if you choose to do so, but for the most part that completes the install. Thanks for watching.